Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. Join me as we have a real-life discussion on how to change your life by changing your thoughts. Remember, question everything, trust yourself, and find your truth. Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. My name is Sloan Fremont, and I'm your host. It's time for another episode with one of my favorite guests, Dr. Erhard Vogel. And if you're new to the show and you haven't listened to any of my previous episodes with Dr. Vogel, I want to give you just a brief introduction to him, and then we're going to get right into it. Each episode I have with Erhard, I come with a new topic, and we just start talking about it with a real loose plan. So, Erhard is recognized as one of the foremost meditation and self-realization teachers in the world. He is the founder of the Nataraja Yoga Ashram in San Diego. And Erhard teaches only from a direct experience. With clarity and simplicity, he demystifies the fundamental questions of life and guides students to find the answers within themselves. His step-by-step teachings and easy-to-implement techniques have made self-realization attainable for tens of thousands worldwide. He's the author of many books, and his most recent book is A Dialogue with Death, The Teacher of Life, an ancient story for the modern world. Erhard, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Sloan.
Well, this week, I want to do something a little different with with our topic. I want to talk about universal forces working in our favor. At the end of our last episode, we touched on this briefly. We both shared some stories in our own lives of things that had happened that really no other explanation than those universal forces at work. So that's where I want to go today. What do you think of that?
Sounds interesting.
Okay.
I can't wait.
So let's start out by telling, I'd like you to share the story that you told me last month about the necklace. I want to start with that, and then I'm going to share my own story, and then we're going to get into it.
Okay. Well, I want to preface this by saying that I have a long history of not getting into the sort of the popular spiritual things of out-of-body experiences, ethereal experiences, and stuff like that. I'm still pretty much of a pragmatist, but even on the spiritual level. Mm-hmm. The things that I want to be able to say I know to be true, that's very important to me, a distinction from I believe this is true. Mm-hmm. When I say I know, I say that because I have experienced it and can experience it right now to be so. Mm-hmm. So the sort of angels visiting and things kind of experiences I don't play around with.
Right.
Okay. Then maybe that's just me, and I never say other people shouldn't have those kind of experiences. If they do, they have, and if I don't, I don't.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right. So you want me to talk about a strange an experience I consider somewhat strange, and then not at all.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Okay. About 40 years ago, I think it was 1979, 40 odd years ago, I was in Nepal. Mm-hmm. And no, it wasn't Nepal. It was Thailand. It was in Thailand. They are famous for beautiful jewelry. Mm-hmm. And some doctor came up and said to me, there's some fabulous jewelry for sale, and I should stop by and check it out. So just because I thought fabulous jewelry, well, it's a form of art. I'll see it. And I go there, and I end up buying a piece, which was very strange for me because I was traveling a lot in the East. I'd spent years and years there, and all over the world, actually, not just the East. So I had very little money. Mm-hmm. Almost none. I had just enough money to travel and survive with, and I'm buying this piece of, it's a pendant with a blue stone in it and beautiful gold setting, right? And I'm buying this. And I'm trying to think of the name of that blue stone. Can you think of names of blue stones?
Sapphire?
What else?
I think there's aquamarine.
No,
There's
no, it's an expensive, it is sapphire.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I buy that and put it, carried with me in my backpack. And I couldn't explain to myself why I bought this. I didn't think of anyone. Oh, I thought of buying it for my younger son's future wife,
Okay.
future bride. But this is when my son is only about, 10 years old or something like that, Oh, no. No, wasn't even born yet. He wasn't even born yet. So, and I kept that with me for over 40 years and moving and putting it in different places and then sometimes not being able to find it anymore and eventually to find it. And eventually my son just recently got married to this wonderful, gorgeous, beautiful soul that is just like a joy for me to have in my life as my daughter now. And for a wedding present, I thought, I have to give her that pendant because she is the one I bought that for, even though she wasn't even born yet.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So I give her the pendant, and she goes, oh, and shows me her wedding band, engagement and wedding band, and it's a blue sapphire, the same, almost the same size as the one I had, with the same kind of setting, just a little bit different color gold, lighter color gold. And so I'm saying, okay, this is weird. This is too much, too close to be just a coincidence.
Right.
So something got me 40 years ago to buy jewelry, which I never would, for somebody who hasn't even been born yet. And I buy it and I keep it and, for all these years. And then this is what it is. It's exactly the same stone and setting as, well, not exactly, but I mean, the same stone as her wedding band.
Right.
I mean, so how do you
Right.
explain that?
Right. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
It's to me too specific to be
Yes.
just an accident or a coincidence,
Yes.
because there are too many steps involved over 40 years. And even to start out with, something had to get me to buy this. Something urged me to
Right.
buy it against my normal policies,
Right. And especially when you were in a place that you were traveling and you didn't have a lot of money at the time. So to buy something like that, which would have been probably considered extravagant given the situation you were in, the fact that you did actually buy it adds to the story of this, as I talked about. And we talked about last month when we weren't recording anymore about these universal forces that come in and compel us to do things that lead us over our life to things like this, like you being able to give that to your now daughter-in-law and bring so much joy to her and be able to explain the story of getting that so long ago before she was even born.
Yeah. So the way I treat it or think about it myself is that, okay, this is going to take some explanation, but it's my cosmological view.
Yes.
Is the fact
yes.
that we're all, what are we fundamentally? What are we fundamentally, meaning without which we could not be?
Consciousness.
Right? We could not be, we could be without our hairstyle or color. We could even be a different gender. People are doing that nowadays a lot, or showing that. We could be We could be not the profession that we have. All the things we identify ourselves are really not what we are.
Right.
Because what we are is the permanent thing about us. And that without which we could not be. And so you said consciousness, okay? But how is anybody going to anybody going to understand that consciousness?
Right.
So I always try to, when I'm teaching, speak about things in such a way that, in a way, I'm proving it, or at least getting people to understand it within themselves, be able to experience it within themselves. You know,
Right.
so that without which you could not be. When you pare everything down, it's not your hair color, it's not your gender, it's not your profession, it's not this or that, it's not your mood, I'm angry, I'm mad, or this or that. Ultimately, what you're left with is the ability to be, the power to be is what you, without which you could not be, the power to be.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yes.
So that's not far-fetched. I mean, that's sort of like, you can't really contradict that point, that without the power to be, we could not be. So that's
Right.
the fundamental thing about us. That's the fundamental thing about us is our identity. Not the superficial things and momentary things about that. Those are not our identity. What is fundamental about us is what we always are, which is the power to be. Okay? Now, one of the characteristics of power or energy is that it's all interconnected. It cannot be divided. Right? That
Right.
we all learned that in grade school or high school. Right? So, that energy that we are, everything that is due to the power to be, thus is the power to be. Thus we're all interlinked as various expressions of the power to be. Right?
Right.
The expressions are different, but the expressions are momentary.
Right.
But the permanent thing about us is that we are being. And the thing in the cosmos is, how could all this interconnected beingness be without it being able to be aware of itself? That would be nonsense, right? Obviously, we're aware of something, things are aware of something, so the underlying vibratory state of the power of being is the ability to experience itself or be aware of itself, which is what we call consciousness.
Okay. Yes.
So consciousness and the power to be, they're both forms of energy. We don't have an organ called being, organ or consciousness. There's no organ for consciousness. It's all over the place. In fact, the whole cosmos is permeated, or is the power of being who is able to be aware of itself, consciousness. Okay? So here we're in this ocean, limitless ocean of energy with consciousness that has things constantly occurring, because one of the things about the power of any energy is that it's also indestructible.
Yes.
So the power to be is indestructible. That means it's eternal. So in my primitive ways, I say, well, it has to have ways of entertaining itself while it's eternal, because otherwise it would just be bored, right?
Right. Right.
So that interconnected power to be, who is aware of being, has things happening all the time, and they're all interconnected. Now, we don't see necessarily those connections, but, great scientists like Einstein and so on, they have proven a lot of connections throughout, So now, in terms of this incident with the jewelry, so things happen in life. Energies are at play. Conscious energies are at play. So there had to be a conscious energy that got me who is also conscious energy, to do something that